Right, good evening. It's Tuesday, November 19th. We're here for the Lake Bluff Public Library Board of Trustees. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
You guys were busy while I was out of the country. Good work. So I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the dot. And Trustee Friedeman, if you would take roll call, please.
Sure. Trustee Shaul.
Here.
Trustee Jerch.
Here.
Trustee Jardine.
Here.
Also here. I'm never gonna get used to that.
We have a forum. And as I said, I think Trustee Zaute is coming off the train, so should be here shortly. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We don't have a flag.
We don't have a flag. That's okay.
Oh,
What happened
it's
to it?
okay. It's in the storage room.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
moved in the
oh.
storage room. It was in there when
I would have moved it in here. I'm sorry, I didn't
So
know.
still do the pledge.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, everyone. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? We'll be hearing from HR, Finance, and Building and Grounds.
Okay, we're on number 5 on the agenda now.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that we had representation. I'm not sure if Finance met without me. If Finance met Matt or
No.
no, so it's just, Bill, the last meeting was Bill and I, so I can report out on that. Perfect. Okay. I think we're good then. We have someone here from the public. Welcome.
Eliza Jarvi. I came here originally for one thing, but I'm also going to address one other thing. My original.
Okay, please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Joan Cordeniz.
Oh, hi, Joan.
Hello, Joan. It's very nice to meet you.
And I've been, Janie, did you used to work?
I did, yeah, I had Will as a student, yeah.
I'm still teaching,
Hi.
and anyway.
Yeah, hey, Matt. You're here today next to Janie.
Hi. All right.
So at 7:02, Matt Zaute has joined us. Sorry, Joan. We'll have you restart just a second. Right.
Hey, I'm Joan Cordeniz. I've lived in Lake Bluff for 34 years, and I've been on the library board in the distant past. I resurrected the Friends of the Library. I've been here a while. And I've been reading the information in the board packets and the retreat report and stuff, and I'm reading that we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of work to do on the building. And I'm reading that the staff is grossly underpaid. And that we have cut hours by 22%. And we've cut popular services, including passport, which was a revenue maker. And I originally went to vote Lake Bluff to find out what people's position was on this, but there was nobody there. And the question I have is, this isn't cutting it. We're dying of death by 1,000 cuts. Is there any plan to go to a referendum to fix the building? Because to me, that's the only way you can go. You don't have the capital funds to do it. You don't have a reserve fund. There's just no money here. And if the library is a valued part of the community, which I think it is based on community surveys, I think it's an option worth exploring and exploring soon. I mean, you can't even update security issues because of the asbestos. It's just an awful situation. And every year I see it decline more and more. And it's very frustrating for me. When we bought our house, my one stipulation was that you could walk to the library and have sidewalks to walk to the library. And I'm like, the library, in my opinion, it's kind of dying, and I hate to see this. And I don't know what the rest of the community feels about it, but the people I've talked to are like, let's fix it.
Great. Well, would you like me to
Yeah, is there a plan for referendum or for tax increases or?
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, for your level of engagement. And I know in the past you also supported our efforts as a library to collect some back taxes from the village, which we did do and kind of close that out in January of this past year, January 2024, I believe it was. Your level of engagement, again, very impressive. It was in February of 2024 that we did our first offsite retreat, and we engaged with a municipal financial advisor who has given this board kind of finance 101 information about some of the different levers that can be pulled to help support and improve the financial standing of the library. Whether it's a tax levy or it's bonds, or it's a big referendum that maybe looks at both the operating, annual operating budget needs as well as the capital needs of the building. In order to come up with an accurate estimate of what it's going to cost to do things like replace the original HVAC, replace the original plumbing, replace the original windows. Eventually, in the long-range plan, we're going to have to replace the roof again. I'm sure you may remember when that happened. Maybe you were serving on the library board. But in order to get an exact number for that, we've engaged with an architectural firm called Anderson, who supports many different libraries, and many of our peer group North Shore libraries have undergone substantial renovations in the last number of years. As you may remember, I mean, you've been in this community for so long, Joan, this building has not changed much in the 34 years that you've been here. Yeah. So we have made the village aware of the type of needs that the library has from both an operational and a capital, the building standpoint. But again, we don't have a precise number yet to figure out how do we get to perhaps reinstating Sunday hours, which is a top priority for this, installing the security system, which is a top priority for this library, this community, and this board. So I don't have a finite answer to say, guess what, April 1st of 2025, you know, you're going to see, I don't have that answer yet. In order to do it well and not have to keep coming back and asking the community for more and more money, we want to do it right, which means giving it a little time. The other thing I can tell you, which we've started to repeat and communicate in a much more transparent way with the community over the last 18 months, is that the amount of tax revenue we receive in Lake Bluff for our library is 2.5%. There are other North Shore libraries that receive as much as 6% of their the tax revenue collected. So we are comparatively kind of poorly funded, I'll say, comparatively.
Is the intent to do this, though, to make these improvements? And
yeah, the intent is that the library will remain an ongoing, well-loved third place in this community. That's what we as a board stand for. That's what we've heard the village say, that they're interested in maintaining the library for the long haul in our community.
Can I ask what you mean by third place?
Yeah, so it's a term that's become more popular, I'd say, in the last maybe 3 years, where it's a lot of people have two places that routinely are part of their lives, whether it's your home and your workplace. The library is a third place. Whether if you're a teenager, maybe it's your home and your school. The library is a potential third place.
I understand.
Yeah.
I never heard that term.
Yeah.
Can I add just?
Yeah, any other board members want to
Yeah.
add?
I would tell you that we had this comprehensive plan that we have been undergoing, starting as a result of our February board retreat. Okay. That we were hoping that would be finished and we would have the final report, including all the numbers for operating and for building and so on and so forth. It was supposed to be January of 25 was when that deliverable was supposed to happen. With Renee leaving, we've had to kind of stop everything, and we haven't been moving ahead because we feel that the new director, when we get a new director on board, should be the person. So that's one of the reasons that is being delayed right now, because the village wants to see a number from us. And like Bonnie said, we want to make sure that number includes everything. We don't want to keep coming back to community, nickel and diming and saying, we need this, we need this. So unfortunately, that's where we are right now, is where we are actively involved in a search for a new director. We hope to have a new director on board. I'll be addressing that, this evening. And as soon as the new director is on board, we'll continue with Ingrid Anderson and so on and so forth, and we'll be able to go to the village.
So the intent is if the number comes up as 3 million, we go to the public and say.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
And to your point, I want to add that I'm a relatively new resident of Lake Bluff. I grew up here, but I'm back as an adult. And I can understand where the level of communication that the public has received from the library would indicate, oh my goodness, it is, it's on a downhill. But I think the reality is that communication, that pattern of communication was not clear for a long time. So rather than it being a sudden, oh my goodness, it's more about how do we communicate with the public to gather a better understanding and engage folks to see, we have really amazing community engagement events where folks were doing tours of the building and seeing the back spaces and what it looks like in here to really get that comprehensive understanding of the challenges and the opportunities that we're facing as an org. Because there are, despite many challenges, also many opportunities to look at in terms of what the next steps are and being responsive to the community and stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. So I really applaud you for being so engaged. And that's exactly what we're hoping is to hear from folks like you so that we know we are taking the steps for financial and long-term organizational sustainability in ways this library hasn't seen before. And that's an exciting thing. I can understand where the communication sounds dire. But yes, and yes. And I think to Janie's point, just for the scope of timeline, our goal is to have the new library director in place by March 1st. Which then sort of kickstarts a lot of the things that we're pausing right now. David is keeping the ship afloat with everyone and keeping things going. And then if we align with that 4-month pause that we've had finding a new director, that strategic facilities plan would come to us probably April, May of 2025. And would allow us then to continue our long range planning, which we would estimate by the end of the year. And that gives us a really comprehensive, these are the steps to get there. So thank you.
Okay, the other thing I wasn't originally going to say anything about until I saw your packet and the dear sir or madam letter the library received.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything that's anonymous, I don't know how seriously I take, and anything that's anonymous and filled with insults, I take even less seriously. But if you're going to be getting people saying that they would like to basically censor whatever's in our collection, count me on your side, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm also happy to say that Illinois State passed a law that bans book bans. So we also have JD Pritzker on our side.
Yeah.
Secretary of State?
Yeah.
Is he the head librarian?
He's the head librarian.
He's the state librarian, yeah.
I don't like other people parenting my children, and if they don't want their kids to read it, they can tell their children, you're not allowed to read this book.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you for being
Thank you.
here and bringing up 2 very important topics.
Yeah.
All right. So, our next agenda item, oh, wait, Anthony, is there anyone else online who wants to address the board? Anyone else from the public? Okay. Then our next action item is to approve the minutes from October 15th.
I always feel a little strange in moving to approve minutes I myself took, so.
I will move to approve them.
And I will second.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained, if anyone wasn't here, so Matt's abstained, thank you. All right, the minutes have been approved. Yeah, it takes us to the library director update. David.
Great, well, you've got our written report, mine and that of the managers. I'm not going to read it to you. Certainly, we'll welcome any questions you have about anything in it. The only couple of things I'll mention that I think are important to mention out loud are the part of my report about the state construction grant. So again, after several in-person reviews of the building by computer view, by Midwest Environmental Consulting, by the name of the security company, which right now escapes me. And Janie Jerch was here for all of those walkthroughs and talking with the people that were looking through the building.
CDI.
Computer view, yeah. But there was another representative from a security company.
Oh,
there,
right,
too.
right, yeah.
Janie and I received a communication from Roxy, who is one of the principals at Computer View, that in light of the presence of the asbestos and what the information they have says it would take to either avoid it or abate it for the purposes of the project that you were thinking of, that their recommendation is that the project just be paused, or at least those parts of the project be paused so that we can deal with the asbestos. And I agree with that recommendation. I think Janie does. And so I went back to the state of Illinois to get more information about the appropriation that we got. I know that appropriation initially came to the library several years ago, that it's been renewed now for several years because it hasn't been used yet. And I just wanted to find out what the status of that is. And I was informed that it will expire again at the end of the state of Illinois' fiscal year, that it again could be renewed for another year, but there are never any guarantees that it will be renewed. And that if it isn't, then the money will just no longer be available for the library to use. And also that, and I specifically asked to get the answer, using money like that from a state construction grant or appropriation, asbestos abatement is a perfectly acceptable way to use the money. In fact, libraries will use and other organizations will use money like that all the time for asbestos abatement. So if you want to make sure that the money is used, you don't have, and you want to make sure it's used this fiscal year, you don't have too much time to figure that out. My recommendation would be that you just try to use it for an asbestos abatement project. Now we have reports, I think you have reports that tell you where the asbestos is located and how much of it, or what the presence is, but I don't think you have a report that gives you any information about what it would take to actually remove it.
That's correct.
So we would, if you wanted to do that, that would, I think, would be the next step, is maybe perhaps going back to the same environmental company and find out what it would take to get that kind of a report in your hands for what it would take to actually abate all of it.
So we had the one abatement for this area back here.
We have a cost estimate for removal
We do.
of, yes,
Yes.
but we don't have the cost estimate to then repair and replace once the tile in the lower level entranceway is removed.
Okay,
So my question,
and that's not the only place. where
right,
this-
that's my other question is, I'm not sure, or maybe they flagged this for where else the abatement would need to happen, so that we could even do just like a quick cost. Projection.
Again, I guess have to go back to the report, make sure it's complete. I mean, when I was here with Janie for one of the walkthroughs, I know that the companies were talking together about going through certain doors and walls to install certain kinds of equipment, and realized that they were then also talking about the presence of asbestos there. And they would either, if they could not go around it, if they could not avoid it, then they would have to temporarily enclose the area to get rid of the asbestos before they can continue.
Right. And just to rewind further, as part of understanding how much it would cost to update this building with up-to-date, again, plumbing, electric, etc., a lead study was done, as well as this asbestos study, because before you open any walls or etc., you need to know where those things are so that you're handling them appropriately. So
Right.
this sort of was a confluence of the state grant, the $100,000 state grant, and the long-range planning work coming together and intersecting.
Sure, right. So, I mentioned it also because besides getting a full report about what it would take to abate everything and what those costs would be, there is a lot of bureaucratic work that needs to go into actually fulfilling the state's, requirements for getting the grant. And I'm just concerned for you that if all of this waits until your next director is here, there probably isn't going to be time to do it. And again, if the appropriation is renewed, then you have another year. So
the appropriation was renewed once already because it was released in either late 2023 or early 2024 with a July 1st expiry.
okay,
Renee did successfully appeal to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for an extension to June of 2025.
okay.
So what I think when we hear from Building and Grounds later today, let's get a little more update on what if on the Midwest Environmental Consulting CDI meeting. And I think that the place where next steps on asbestos abatement, where it's best suited is with Building and Grounds.
And there
So that's
was an approval in July or a motion by the Building and Grounds Committee, I'm just pulling up the minutes,
Mhm.
to remediate the staff entryway on that, the asbestos report. And then the following month, we had talked about when the building facility, which I know is another update, is onboarded, that would move over to them. So, I will.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe David, in that, on that thread then, give us a quick update on the applications for the Building and Grounds
Sure.
personnel.
Yeah,
role that was
I
approved.
received
Yeah.
at least a dozen applications for the position. Several of them that I've reviewed are quite they're very good. People are very qualified, and so I'm gonna, as soon as I come back from my trip, I'm going to start scheduling some interviews, and if they're as good as they seem on paper, then I shouldn't have a problem filling the position pretty quickly.
You're talking about Katie's position.
No, I'm talking about the building and
facility.
grounds maintenance.
The Building and
Oh,
Grounds person. So
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
this person would be responsible for managing any companies that come in to do asbestos abatement. This
Yes.
person would work with Anthony on implementing and installing a security system. This person would work on with Anderson as well on long range, on the building facilities master plan.
So, okay. Thank you for that. That's probably a little bit more of a lift than I thought we would be hiring for this position. I mean, it's a part-time position. It's good to know that that might be the expectation for this, for the person that's hired, that they would take on that kind of responsibility. So I'll need to, think about that.
When the HVAC system's acting up, this person would be on call, as opposed to having one of the, master's degree librarian.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that is perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Some of the other things you were mentioning about,
Project
about project management or being responsible for the communicating about the asbestos abatement project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, input to the Enberg-Anderson plan. I think any big project, just like the renovation of the Stroh room, we had an outside construction company project manager on site for day to day. So I think that would still be needed since this person would be part-time.
Yeah,
And, with the salary, hourly salary we're talking about for that individual.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any other questions about any other parts of the report?
Oh, we're donating the book bag?
We did,
We did.
yes.
Interesting.
Any other questions about the director's report, the text of the director's report?
No, only that I do have the full asbestos report. Would you like me to share?
Please.
Okay.
I'm sure it's up there somewhere, but yes,
Yeah.
please, that'd be great.
Okay, anything on the statistics you wanted to point out, David?
Nothing specific. Again, if you have any questions. And again, if there are any kinds of statistics that you're used to seeing or would like to see that I'm not including, just let me know.
I think a year over year is always helpful, especially on like some of the circulation and collection stuff, but yeah,
Okay, sure.
high priority.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, comments on the director's report, we'll move to the financial reports. So David, if you'll take us through revenue and expenditure first.
I mean, as you can see there, we're about halfway through the fiscal year, and I think revenue and expenditure is about halfway there, while recognizing that there are a number of lines in the budget, particularly for building maintenance and contractual services and for legal fees that are overspent and will continue to be even more overspent before the end of the fiscal year. And I think that's something that the budget, that the finance committee will need to be talking about as we prepare for an amendment to the, as you prepare for an amendment to the budget for the next fiscal year. Otherwise, couple of additional things that we did last month that there were checks for. You might remember that I sent you an email saying that I was having the windows washed and the front of the building power washed, which needed to be done. So there was a payment to the Vico window company for that. Some additional plumbing work that we needed to do on the building for bathrooms.
Okay, thank you. So like David said, our expenditures are right around the 50% mark with a few account items running over. Good news is our revenues collected, taxes is at almost 98% for the year. So we'll earn interest on that until we spend it against our monthly salaries, etc. Total revenue at 93%, which is a great place to be, because again, we should see some fairly nice interest earnings for that. So would anyone like to make a motion regarding the October 2024 revenue and expenditure reports?
I so move.
Thank you, Trustee Jerch. Is there a second? Thank you, Trustee Jardine. Roll call vote for the financial items.
Trustee Zaute,
Aye.
trustee Jerch,
Aye.
trustee Shaul,
Aye.
trustee Friedeman, aye, and trustee Jardine.
Thank you. That brings us to the checks.
Can I ask a quick question on checks? So it looks like these are numbered 16,242 through 16,283, and last month's checks ended at 16,235. Just curious if there were like canceled checks. It looks like numbers 16,236 or 16,240.
I'm not sure, but I'm going to guess it's probably because of the way I ran the report. Because when you run the report through the system, you have to select the starting and ending date.
Okay.
And I might not have included some of the dates that needed to overlap. So I can correct that. So tell me again what's missing.
The checks number would be 16,236.
16,236
through 16,241.
and those are the ones that are missing.
Yes, so they were not in last month's and they are not in this.
Okay.
And there's one more missing in the report today, which is 16,313. So when we do move to approve the checks, we state the check numbers.
I see, wait, 16,313, Natasha Lair Louisart.
Is it out of sequence?
It is, yes, it is
Okay.
on the last. It's on the last page of the checks after 16302.
Wait a minute, there isn't a 16302.
So it's the last page of check disbursements, so it would be the one right before Diners and Todd. There is 16283 is the top check number and 16313 is in that list, but it looks like those are not in chronological order. Which is perhaps why they're.
Okay, and there's a couple checks on the back of that page too, Ally. Yep,
Mhm.
so,
That I don't know why it's reading that way.
yeah. I call this a bit of a learning curve for our interim director on our check report, for sure.
So
But 313 is in there.
Yes, so is 301, yep, 302. I signed the checks this month. Who was the second signature on our checks this month?
Me.
Okay. And so previously David explained that, you know, one of the new names that you may not have seen before was for a payment for the window washing and some power washing on the building, which was greatly needed after a lot of cobwebs and other things built up.
yes, I don't know when the last time it was done, but I'm glad we had a chance to do it.
Were there any other questions about the checks? We've identified the sequencing being a little out of whack.
I can tell that they were, it's listed here in the order in which the checks were
Where did-
actually
Yeah,
Most.
posted.
yeah.
So I just need to change the way the report is run.
Okay, if there are no other questions on the checks, is there a motion regarding our checks?
If you could help us out, I'd be happy to make it
Yes.
if you could help me out with the numbers.
Sure, I just want to make sure I also have them right because, I have because we have 332, so it looks like the agenda, numbers off, I want to make sure that it's correct.
Yeah, I think it starts with 16242. There are some missing. You might want to put that in the minutes too.
Looks like 323 is that high.
Yeah,
16323.
So, yeah.
yep, so it would be.
16323 is on the last
Yeah,
page.
so the numbers are 16242 or 16323.
Okay, I will move that we accept the checks numbered 16242 to 16323, noting that we still need to see numbers 16236 through 16241.
Thank you, trustee Jerch.
I'll second.
I just want to make sure trustee Friedeman got that in the minutes in regard to the check numbers.
Yes, where what I have noted is that 16236 through 16241.
Great, the missing checks.
That is not within the range that Janie just stated. So
Correct. That's something we're requesting David to follow up on.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second to approve the check numbers stated by trustee Jerch?
I'll second.
Exactly.
Okay, trustee Zaute is a second, and we'll do a roll call.
Trustee Zaute,
Aye.
trustee Jerch,
Aye.
trustee Shaul,
Aye.
trustee Jardine. Aye.
Right, the checks have been approved. That brings us to committee reports. So first up, HR, and I believe Jenny
Yes.
said she provided you some.
He did,
notes.
indeed. So she says, everything the board needs to know is included in the Diners and Todd papers that David included in the packet. So please ask trustees to include the following dates in their calendars, okay? So you can look along with me through this search process that's in your packet. The key dates during the search is that the job advertisement window is November 25th through December 20th.
Mhm.
Okay. We will have phone interviews on December 23rd. We will have Zoom interviews the week of December 30th or the week of January 6th. It will be most likely the latter. The final interviews will be Saturday, January 28th, and then it says January, and I'm not sure, she didn't finish the date, so I'm not sure what she had in mind. Final interviews,
25th.
I think it's supposed to be 18 and 25. The November 13th letter from Dieters and Todd calls out either Saturday, January 18th or January 25.
okay, yeah, so that should be an 18.
Both of which are Saturdays. So
Okay,
this is a
so-
proposal. If
yes,
these dates don't work for the HR committee or others on the board who want to participate, then we'll change them.
okay. And then Dieters and Todd would like all trustees to participate in the interviews. More details are included in the board packet. Also, the HR committee is in the early stages. Okay, before I go on to the next part of this, is everybody clear on that part of it? The dates that we're gonna have the final interviews. So it'll either be Saturday, 1/18 or Saturday, 1/25, and it's possible it could be both, because I don't know if that's the case or not. Do you know about any?
You don't.
Do one or the other, okay. What we were told is that we would break it down to 2, maximum of 3 finalists. Is that right, David? That
For this search.
for the final interview. We would,
I don't know.
I have it from my notes, from the special meeting, so it was 4 to 6 qualified candidates.
right,
Then narrowing down to 2 final,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So the final interviews will be probably 2.
2 people, yeah.
2 people.
And I thought we also talked about this December 23rd date, because that's kind of unrealistic.
Yeah, oh, that's totally unrealistic, yeah. Okay, so. Search process, yeah, that's not gonna happen.
So may I ask, how or when do you plan to decide as a board which of these 2 dates, the 18th, the 25th, you want to recommend to Alex Todd? Because I think he's assuming that the communication will come through me, so I'll.
Okay, we're probably going to have a special meeting then, because we do not have a December board meeting. So that's something we're gonna have to work through.
Well, are the phone interviews to be conducted by Dieters and Todd? At what point is the board expected or the HR committee expected to be involved?
I think the Zoom interviews is the time at which we are supposed to be involved, and then the final interviews. So the Zoom interviews and final interviews, I think that's when they want us involved in it. The phone interviews, that's going to be Dieters and Todd doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
So according to his letter, the Zoom interviews would be the week of January 6th. And then the final interview would either be on the 18th
18th.
or on the 25th.
Yes.
So I'd make a
Correct.
suggestion that the HR committee is involved in the Zoom interviews, and then anyone on the full board who's available for the final interviews participate in the final interviews.
They would like,
Does that make sense?
once again, she said
Yeah.
they would like all trustees to participate in those interviews. So as many as possible.
Because the way he's got it broken up is there's 2 rounds of initial interviews. The first they will do, and then the second, it's open for board members to join, and he recommends that. And then in the final interviews, yes, we should be a part of that. They're gonna have a presentation component that they'll get in advance,
Great.
and then they'll share that with us and we can ask questions.
Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so are we clear about these dates and how the search process is scheduled to go.
I just wanted to look, January sixth, is that a Saturday?
Second.
Sure.
It is a Monday.
Monday. So,
It says week, it doesn't
Yeah.
say that day.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
the evenings, it's evenings of the week of the 6th for 45 minutes per interview. And then anyone who attends the Zoom interviews attends all of the Zoom interviews. So that they're able to provide input across all candidates.
All right, are you ready for me to move on to the second part of the HR report? Okay.
Is there clarity, David, you mentioned that he may be expecting it from you.
Right,
the communication, so do we need to make that decision? Now?
I mean, if you're looking at your calendars and there's a preference now for a date that I could at least share with him now. Not that it wouldn't change later, but I think, yes, that would be helpful. I think.
Okay, all right, we can certainly do that this evening. Okay. All right, the second thing that we tackled at our committee is, we are in the early stages of completing the personnel policy handbook review. We discussed a number of leave policies using some of the research that Renee and David gathered. David will be reaching out to HR Source to find out the best way to update the manual. It's been a while since it's been reviewed by an outside source, so that, so looking to find out more about how to make the manual more clear, concise, and user-friendly. We're gonna look to HR Source to help us with that, okay? So we're just in the beginning stages of doing that. Any questions about that part of it? And finally, we were talking about the holiday party for staff. Last year, we had the holiday party in January because it just didn't work out. It's very problematic to get it in December. Everybody's just so busy. So, and that seemed to work out well to have it in January last year. And so, David is going to, at the next staff meeting, find a date that works for them.
So I think
You have it?
I talked to a couple of the managers and I think they thought that the next date that we have an all staff meeting is Friday, December 13th.
Oh,
That-
so would you
that-
like to do it then?
And I think they would like to do it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific. That's great news.
okay,
Okay.
So they have the staff meetings in the morning and then they can break for lunch and then staff can have lunch after the meeting.
Okay.
so the trustees are invited to attend, anyone who's available that Friday afternoon. At roughly anytime between 11:30 and 1. Welcome to stop by.
All right, so that takes care of. That's the
Thanks,
end of
Janie.
Sure.
Pinch hitting for Jenny tonight. I said 11:30 for December 13th, because sometimes we help with setup.
Okay, great.
But I don't know if this room is already gonna be in use for the staff meeting.
I'm sure we can
So-
work around it.
Okay, you know, you confirm the time with us.
I
It's
will.
nearly a month away.
We could set it up, we could set it up down there too, so,
Oh, yeah, in the,
or even if the library's
Could
may
be.
close, we can set it upstairs, so.
Well, yeah, we'll close in the morning, but we'll open in the afternoon.
okay. Great,
So you're opening at 1?
I believe that's right.
We open at noon.
Oh, noon, sorry, thank you, Joe.
all right, that takes us to the Finance and Technology Committee meeting. The Finance Committee met and discussed the budget for next year. I think there must have been a report out for the special meeting that was held that approved the budget submission to the village. On November 25th, we are scheduled to provide a update at the village trustee meeting. So that's Monday, November 25th. I'll be there. I think a few other library trustees are all invited to join.
It is also the hearing, the levy hearing night, or the Yeah.
Yeah.
Budget hearing night,
Yeah.
as well as our own little
Update.
presentation.
Yes, as well as our own little update.
Yeah.
As you all heard at the special meeting, the village is planning on levying a 3.5% amount. The library, as you guys know, because you approved it, it's approved a 6% levy increase. So we are decoupling, I guess you might say, from what the village is requesting. The village is tied to PTEL. We as a library are not. The incremental dollars would go forward, again, as discussed at the special meeting, the building and grounds person, that's an annual recurring costs that we will be incurring. Additionally, we need some money to backfill both the library director role and the adult and circulation manager reference. Did I say, I may not have said the title correctly. I apologize.
Reference and circulation.
Reference and circulation manager. Thirdly, our ebook spending needs an additional cash infusion. If any of you have ever tried to borrow an ebook, occasionally you get something that says there's like a 24-week wait for your book. When we have more money assigned to that line item, we will be able to address some of those very long wait times for ebooks. So that's just sort of top of mind. Bill and I, at the last Finance and Technology Committee meeting, went through line by line by line with David, talked about what needed to be tweaked. Again, I know that you all took a close look at that work at the last special meeting. So anything I missed or anything else that was discussed at the special meeting that should be referenced here tonight, because I wasn't here for the special meeting. Okay. All right, so that's the Finance and Technology Committee meeting. That brings us to Building and Grounds. Janie, back to you.
I have to confess, I did not come prepared to do this. So can you help me out, Sandy, with what we did? I know we discussed,
The parking lot lighting, and village architectural review board determination. So, we need to, contact the manufacturer to ask about prices for lights, because we're deciding whether to determine which lights by the cost. And then which ones need to be replaced first because they're bothersome to the neighbors. Jane is gonna get a proposal from the installer.
okay, this is, thank you for reminding me. Okay, I contacted Brian Renner to ask some of those questions you were asking, but never heard back from him. Okay, I contacted the lighting firm, didn't hear back from them. Okay. I contacted a local, by local, I mean Libertyville company that does lighting for businesses and, industrial lighting, like what we're looking for, and asked them to contact me to come out and give me a quote. Didn't hear back from them. So I'm a bit stymied right now. And I'm knee deep in some other things right now, so I haven't had a lot of time to pursue it. Okay, but I do want you to know that right after that meeting, I did contact all those folks, and nada.
So again, ideally, a building and grounds person could be running point on this.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I can certainly reach out to Brian Renner to, just because I know this one.
Yeah, I know Renee also had some issues where he was not responsive in a timely manner.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that might be very helpful.
I'm really surprised the outfit out in Libertyville didn't even bother with giving me a response, because I went on their website and filled out their contact us thing.
Right. Right.
Zilch.
There was a section here in the director's report, David, in regard to a lot of lighting here at the end.
Yeah, and then, right,
I just want to make sure the Building and Grounds Committee was aware of this, or
that is information that Eliza has been collecting and keeping track of in the absence of someone to take care of the building. And she routinely reviews what is needing replacement or repair and reporting to me. And I included it in this report just so that there was a record of it.
Mhm.
You know, that's, to me, that is an entirely an operational thing. I'm not sure that information like that needs to go to a board committee. I mean, it's the matter of, you know, does the library have the funds to take care of these, and should we go ahead and do it? I also know from Eliza that some of this can't be replaced because of, well, various factors, whether it's age, replacements are not available. I know that there are a number of issues why we have lights that can't be just can't be replaced.
David, do you want me to speak to that at all?
If you can, Eliza,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
and Eliza, maybe in particular, anything related to the exterior of lighting, since that's what has been a negotiating point and a negotiating point with the village and a concern of our neighbor.
Yeah, I wish I had more to offer you in terms of the exterior lighting. Unfortunately, I really don't have a lot. I have reached out to an electrician twice, and like Janie, I have not heard back yet. And based on the troubleshooting that David and I have done, we've not been able to identify what the problem is. So I'm working on that. That having been said, we have several light fixtures where the bollards are broken and the bollards need to be replaced, but there's no point in replacing them in their current state because they use bulbs that are going to be not made for much longer. So we basically would need to undertake changing them into LED fixtures as opposed to replacing them in their current form.
Got it.
I mean, as far as the exterior lights are concerned, we have the Ballard lights, and then we have these lights that are
I was referring only to the lights that are actually on the building.
Yeah,
I
right,
didn't
so,
look into
right.
the bollard lights.
Right, so we have all, and those are the lights that the villages and the architectural review board, I think, has insisted be replaced.
Exactly.
Right now, for whatever reason, only some of those lights are operating at all. And because I now have control over the system to time them so that they go on and off the way they should, there are still some on that side of the building. What direction is that? West. That are not going on at all. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they're burned out. I don't know if it's because they're on a different timing system. I haven't been able to figure that out. So that's a part of the issue too. But they all have to be replaced per the architectural review board's determination, right? And again, Brian Renner's proposal that you reviewed, just to add a little more information, the way I understand it, the architectural review board basically pre-approved his recommendation.
More or less, yes.
So
Yeah, I'm not that.
No, okay. I mean,
Only because he's done work for the village before and
He's
they have,
familiar with the village standards.
yes.
In
yes.
lighting.
so, right, so what?
That I can get behind.
Okay,
just to be
what-
clear.
Sure, no, that's fine. What I'm just reporting what Drew told me. He said,
Okay.
if you move ahead with this and pick one of his proposed solutions, then that would be acceptable
Right.
to the architectural review. That's all, that's what you do. Okay.
All right, Sandy, thank you for
I
agreeing
have
to
one
do
more.
your chat. Oh, okay, sorry. Jen.
Well,
Yeah.
it was, we discussed the access and security project, which is already approved with CPI, and it said they will come back with revised estimate based on asbestos abatement. And then we discussed whether, about putting a security system in the museum as well as the library. And then the last thing was to talk about repair the carpet behind the desk, and David needs the info regarding.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that
You
last
needed
one.
the info regarding the carpet company.
Right, I have that.
Okay.
We have that.
Thank you. Building and grounds. Any other questions for building and grounds tonight? Thanks. The next topic on our agenda says additional reports. Anything in particular for that? Hearing none, we'll move over to new business, item number 11. So the first one is an update on the library director search process.
Sounds like you've already discussed that.
Yeah. We went through the Deere
Sounds like-
I think probably the most important thing would be, and David, if you would be willing to be the collection point, is if people can let David know what dates the week of January 6th, that you're available for participating in Zoom interviews. Additionally, if you have any conflicts for Saturday, January 18th or 25th. Okay, so we can find out when we have a majority or a group of trustees available for those key events.
I'll follow up with an email that you can all just respond to me.
Okay, that brings us to an action item B, revisions to the library director job description. So Peters and Todd put pen to paper, so to speak, and proposed a few changes and updates to the library director job description. This is something that Renee had updated as well. So in red are items that they're suggesting eliminating. Blue looks like items that they're adding. I myself went through it and thought they were very good adds, particularly around the community relations piece of it, as I think about, the time I spent as board president working with Renee and interacting with the village, with some of our local government officials, Sandy Hart, Bob Morgan, Julie Morrison, et cetera. I thought these were very good ads myself, so.
Very small edit, which is just changing the wording city to village and the engagement section, but agree that I think that was a critical ad.
I'm sorry, what number? Under what number? Community relations?
No, it is.
Oh, it's in 5, the first
Yeah.
bullet point.
Working in relationship
City.
with the city. It's
To
just very
village.
small.
Thank you.
Good call.
All right. David, will you be communicating this change back to Peters and Todd? So it's right here. Right before the word school, city, just replace with village. Yep. Okay, any other comments on the library director job description? Okay, hearing none, I'm open to a motion.
I would move to accept proposed revisions to library director job description with the one change in Article 5, the first bullet point, change the word city to village.
Thank you, trustee Jerch. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Friedeman. Just do a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay, passes. Very good. Our next, my stapler has failed, so I might be shuffling papers a little bit for the rest of the night. Our next subject is a discussion about the IGA agreement with the Village of Lake Bluff. So the business terms of a new IGA with the village have all been agreed. There were 2 items that were still outstanding from the last draft revision. One was the description of library governance. The village continues to use the phrase component unit, which our legal team has said has no legal definition, really kind of complicates or blurs the independence of the library board and the independence of the village board. There's a auditing. It appears that the auditors, Sikich, have used this term component unit, but it's something our legal counsel have advised us that is not appropriate to be in the agreement. So that item is outstanding. We've not heard from the village an explanation of why they feel component units should be used. And this was communicated late last week. The second item that's still outstanding is in regard to it's in regard to the acquisition of the property at 127 East Scranton Avenue and a legacy term from the 1998 agreement wherein the village has right of first refusal should the library ever decide to, I'll just use the general term, dispose of the property. Okay, during the term of the museum lease, the village has the right of first refusal for that building. It just, the agreement today in its current draft form just says property, it doesn't specify 127. So I think it's just an oversight. As you guys know, Ellie and I have updated every board meeting with here's where we're aligned, here's where we're not aligned. This appears to be sort of just a lot of revisions, a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this document. I don't expect there to be any kind of pushback because it all relates back to the 1998 IGA and the property of 127 East Scranton Avenue. So, today is Tuesday. It's possible there might be the IGA, the village and library IGA on the village agenda for November 25th, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure at this point since we haven't heard back from the village yet. Allie, anything to add? Anything I missed?
No, I think that sums it up. I've talked with Drew twice in the past couple of weeks, and he indicated that the goal was to have it on the agenda on Monday. So that would be ideal. And we would also be there for that meeting anyway. So
I suspect both entities are going to want a final legal review before it's on an agenda for adoption by the full board. So it's possible it'll be on the 25th. I don't know how probable it is.
On November or December? No.
The village meeting on November 25th. It's possible it might be on their agenda, but
they haven't.
That is 6 days away.
Yeah. Bonnie, can you tell me what the legal counsel suggests we use instead of component unit?
just strike it.
Oh, just strike it.
Yeah, component unit is defined in Gatsby with there are three criteria to meet to be considered a component unit. And David, if you are steeped in component unit knowledge, please correct me, but I did a lot of digging.
Yeah, I'm sure you're.
So I'm friends with Gatsby now, but
Is Gatsby general accounting?
yes, so.
Standards
Yes.
board, okay,
So-
so it's an accounting term.
Or,
Oh,
and
okay.
used in auditing as well. In the
Yes.
audit situation, it would be if the library's audit being incomplete means that the village's audit is unable to be complete. And the village has either a meaningful influence over the governing of the library. And there is a vested interest or burden financially for the village with the library, meaning either we would be a revenue generator or be a significant cost for them, then it would be considered a component unit. I think where the confusion comes in is that Sikich, the auditing firm they use, has used the term component unit when talking about the library. Because they also provide our auditing services, and that I think has confused the definition. So we have provided the information around those three components.
So can I ask you a question about
Yeah.
that? Does the library receive its own independent audit report,
Yes.
Yes.
independent of the village?
Yes.
Mhm.
Then then the library doesn't meet any of the
Yes, exactly.
definitions of component
Yes,
unit.
so we did provide them. I think they have actually just not done that research. They took it as like they heard component unit from the auditor, they're using it. And
Until about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe, before GASB rules were changed. Village libraries, I don't know about other types, but village libraries, and this was true at the Oak Park Library, were simply a page or two within the municipality's audit. So we were not, the library was not required to have its own independent audit. The auditors came in, looked at the books, went back and added in a couple of pages of information to the village's audit. And then you were just there, you were just mentioned in their audit. Then GASB rules were changed. We were required to do our own have our own independent audit reports. And ever since then, as you know, they're separate. So, right. So at that time, I think it might have been accurate in some sense to say that we were a component unit of the village for auditing purposes, but even that's not true anymore.
okay, that's good to know, good context, which it might be a holdover in terms of what they're looking at. There is another like defining, it's a little, there's a lot happening in there, but there is one other defining point around a component unit, which is the ability to remove appointed members of a governing board and modify or approve the budget of the organization. It also includes modifying or approving fee changes affecting revenues like water usage rate increases, and the ability to veto, overrule, modify decisions of an organization's governing body, or hire, reassign, and dismiss people responsible for day-to-day operations.
No.
So it doesn't, right, it doesn't mean any of those. The one thing that they may counter with, and again, I think it's just the village hasn't gotten deep into this, as we have not either, that we cannot levy taxes without them, and so that may also be adding into that use of the term component unit.
Yeah,
maybe.
But that has been a point of negotiation since the very beginning of the IGA. So.
Thank you for clarifying.
If you want to know more about GASB, call me. But I did get, sorry about all the screenshots.
Component unit. Yeah, Ally's done a fantastic job keeping the ball rolling on the IGA over the last weeks. And I kind of swooped in from Europe on Wednesday and added my 2 cents recently.
Well done, both. Well done.
Okay, any other questions about the status of the IGA? All right, that takes us to action item D, patron exclusion from the Lake Bluff Public Library. David, did you wanna?
Do you need some, Eliza or Jill might be able to give some context and history on this? Do you need that? Or do you know?
We're all
we
very
have
familiar
that?
because we have made it. We
Made
made it an action item on this 12 months ago.
Okay,
And
that's
12
what,
months
and that's
before
what I
that.
assumed, but I wasn't, I didn't want to assume that, so. I was, obviously until a couple of days ago, completely unaware of this, and Jill and Eliza mentioned it to me, hey, it's a year, the board needs to decide what they want to do about this. And so I made sure it got into your board packet, so I get, you can decide to rescind it, to modify it, to continue it.
So for public transparency's sake, I think it might be helpful just to have, not so much for the board, just for anyone watching the recording or voting in. So I don't know, Dave, one of us can do it if you or
I'll do it. I'll do
You wanna
it.
do it?
I'll do it. I've been here since the beginning. Maybe the easiest thing is just to refer to the letter itself. There was an individual who was in the library in October of 2022. They violated the computer use policy. The library took action, the board took action to restrict this person from providing them access to our library. They were suspended for a year. Then in November of 2023, this board, at a public meeting, it's recorded and available for anyone who wants to listen to it, decided to extend the suspension for an additional year through November of 2024, November 14th precisely. We also agreed at that time that we would review the case again in a year. Also, the individual, it was communicated in the letter from our director, Director Grassi, that failure to abide by the restrictions during this time would be considered trespassing. The person would be asked to leave by law enforcement or library staff. The individual was also notified that they could appeal the decision to the library board of trustees. The individual has not appealed the decision. And so we're at the 1 year mark again. And, you know, it's time for us to review as to whether or not we extend this suspension.
And to be clear, this is not a Lake Bluff resident. This is a resident of a neighboring community. So we're not talking about a taxpayer of the Lake Bluff Library. And they were using an expired library card at the time of incident, if I recall correctly,
That is
from a
correct.
neighboring library.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Well, my feeling is that we should extend this for 1 more year. And then we can discuss the issue when it comes up in another year with our new director. See what our new director, see if our new director has any strong feelings about it. So I would be in favor of doing it.
Other comments?
I'd rather just extend it indefinitely, and you can go back and it's not an option.
You can't do that. You have to put a date on it.
10 years. And like, I don't want to talk about this again.
Mhm,
I think this guy has cost us enough time already.
mhm.
True that.
So if he wants to come back, he can appeal.
But,
Well, yeah, I mean,
previous
I
experience.
understand the sentiment of not wanting to deal with it. If you were going to do anything more than a year, I'd want to know what our attorney would have to say about that.
And generally, do you have any insight, given your experience, you know, with similar situations in terms of what kind of the
I
standard
have,
is?
I had lots of experience in having to exclude people from the library for certain periods of time. I happily never had to deal with a situation where we were excluding someone for something as serious as this for this long a period of time. So again, my advice is only based on the fact that in those cases where we might have been excluding someone for a shorter period of time, the attorney's advice was always, you can do that, you can renew it, it always needs to be reviewed. And they never recommended doing that more than once a year. Like, because again, then it appears to be something indefinite, and that was what they recommended was not permissible.
I would be tempted to also say, when we have a new director in place, that can be renewed for a year since the new director is here, caught up to speed. We also, as a bylaws and policy committee, had started the computer use review, which has not been finalized, but Matt had done some research on making sure that policy was up to date, which follows the patron, not patron suspension, but the policy that includes patron suspension in it, which had already been approved by the board. So I think by that point, we should have an updated computer use policy as well.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I will move to extend this individual's suspension from the use of the library for until November 19th, 2025.
Thank you, trustee Jerch. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Jardine. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sustained? Are we abstained? Sorry. Okay. Thank you. So if you please,
Yep.
send that letter,
I
put it on
will.
file. Thank you, Eliza and Jill, for, keeping this on the radar. All right, that brings us to a discussion of the standards for Illinois Public Libraries. This is an annual review that the board does. It's for the per capita grant application. David sent us the attachment and just said, please review it and we will discuss if there's any questions.
So yeah, again, my thought was to have just a brief discussion to allow for any questions or concerns you might have about the library's satisfaction of any of the core standards or basic standards in any of the chapters. For the purposes of the application, we just have to indicate that the board has reviewed the document and had a discussion about it.
I love standards. Can I tell you the three that I wrote? And you tell I was a teacher. Where are my other teachers in the room? And so I was reading through this again. And there were three that jumped out to me thinking about the 2025 priorities.
Okay.
And it's less of a question and more of a marking that progress is being made.
Right.
But it is a continual spectrum. And those three were core 12, which is the increased revenue.
Okay.
Which I think is pertinent to our public comment tonight in terms of identifying.
In the first chapter, core standards.
Yes,
Okay.
and then the 19, which is regarding facility and ensuring, I think it was every 2 to 3 years at least, of a comprehensive, look at the facilities in terms of both compliance and accessibility and inclusion. And then those two together brought me to that core 23, which is the comprehensive review, which is what we are in the process of with the long range plan and is very much tied to that 12 and 19 standard that I was going back to. So those are on top of mind as I was prepping our kind of priorities for the village board meeting next week and thinking about the complexities that all kind of are intertwined. And yes, I just wanted to note those
Great.
three.
No, that's
Progress,
great.
not perfection, but focus areas as well.
That's great.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay. Then we will move ahead and get the application done by the January deadline.
Terrific. All right, that brings us to library correspondence and communication. So Joan mentioned the letter that's in your board packet. This letter came in at the end of October. When I read it, I thought it was an appropriate time to perhaps make a distinction between libraries in public schools versus community libraries, Illinois state libraries. And I said to David, there's something that Renee shared with me that was kind of a new learning for me. And it had to do with how the library in a school functions compared to the community library. So do you remember when I asked you to tee this up?
Well, I know that, and I've never been a school librarian, but the purpose of a school library is to support the curriculum of the school. And therefore is governed by the policies that the Board of Education sets. That's different than a public library. We're not, and in some sense, in the sense that schools, I think the term you used, Bonnie, was in loco parentis, that the school acts in place of the parent while the children are in school. Again, that is not the way a public library operates. So we have a much broader, public library has a much broader mission than a school library does in terms of its collections, in terms of its programs. And so if one of the criticisms is that you will find things in a public library that you would not find in a school library, well, that's exactly the point, because our mission is much broader as a public library, and we have a responsibility to serve all segments of the community in its diversity and not just to serve the needs of the students in their pursuit of the curricular goals. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
As you know, previous board meetings, whenever we receive correspondence, we put it in the packet, so it can be shared with the entire board, and the community is also aware. Again, Joan commented on this letter earlier. So that's the letter, no action.
Nope.
There's also a comment card, a couple comment cards, I believe. Yep. In regard to a activity, a program held here, Paint and Sip. It's very well received by someone in our community. Another person asking that the community members be able to purchase the blue book bags that we allow people to borrow
Yeah.
when they take out items. So
Jill in particular suggested to me that that might be a problematic thing, so I'm not sure that that's something we're going to be doing.
You know, there are endless opportunities to get bags. Places, you know, it seems like they give them out every time you go to a function, so.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it.
Social media post, David, you want to comment?
Oh,
on
yeah,
our social media post?
posted by Jill, about our, one of our newest staff members, Julie Jergens, who works in the Youth Services Department. I've been aware of Julie's work in youth services in the Chicago area for a very long time. She's worked in a number of different libraries. I think Jill, correct me, I think she came to us from the Morton Grove Public Library, where she was one of the managers in the Youth Services Department. And I think she was looking forward to getting back to working in the department where she was doing a lot more direct work with children and patrons. So I know that Eliza and the staff are very happy that she is here working with us.
Very, very happy.
Yes.
All right. Just another quick mention about new employees. So maybe on your way out, you might want to grab the newest newsletter. Hot off the presses, I believe. And there are a number of new staff mentioned here.
Yeah.
On page 2, including
Danny
Julie.
and Rennie and Julie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. One other quick comment. At our last board meeting, I committed to follow up with the Library Foundation to request matching funds for the accessibility grant that we received, the $45,000 accessibility grant. As you may remember, the village has agreed to provide some matching funds for sidewalk repair. The Friends of the Library have agreed to provide $5,000 for matching funds. And the foundation has also agreed to provide $35,000 matching funds.
And
So
that
we
was
can-
received. It's received.
I'm sorry.
We have that. We were given that check yesterday afternoon.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So David got the check yesterday?
Well, I got it today because
Yeah.
I found it in my mailbox today.
There you go. That's awesome. He didn't realize that the check had been cut. The ink was dry and the check was cut. So our matching funds for our ADA grant have been fully received. Fully committed. I should say committed. I'm not so sure. I don't know if the Friends money has come in, and I'm not exactly sure how the mechanics of the village matching funds will work. But yeah, delighted that that's the case. So nice work, everyone. Really, and just for a little further expansion, the foundation provided funding for the Stroh room. The foundation provided the funding for the lettering that's up on the wall. There was actually a very nice social media post that a patron in the
Oh,
library.
you're talking about in the store room.
The Stroh room,
In the store room.
the lettering in the stairwell
That was actually the Meyerhoffs.
through the foundation, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. So the foundation has been a nice source of capital improvements, including the new computer table. It's up on the first floor. That makes that first entry piece where you walk in much more cohesive looking now that the those old study carrels have been replaced. So thank you to our foundation. Is executive session needed today?
I don't think so.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you, trustee Jerch. Is there a second?
Second.
It is 8:24. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.